Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how the second round of the Tory leadership contest, which took part yesterday, shows how Conservative MPs are approaching this and what we can expect to happen next. Because the first thing to note is, after the first round I said, well, if Priti Patel's supporters were in strategic mood, they could have switched their votes to Mel Stride in order to dump Tom Tugendhat out of the contest. In the event, had they done this, I'm not really sure what would have happened, because Tugendhat and Cleverly ended up on the same votes each, 21. But they didn't anyway, so Mel Stride is out. He was the one who had no chance of winning anyway. But I'll talk about how I think this contest is exposing the lack of strategic thinking amongst Tory MPs in a third video this evening, because I had an interesting chat with Mike Galsworthy of European Movement UK about it last night. You can see for yourself later today, but let's look at where we are now. So first of all, what we've got left are the four candidates who all have a realistic chance of winning the contest, even though Jenrick is probably favourite. Not because he's led the votes in both of the first two rounds. That doesn't mean very much. It doesn't matter how much support he has from MPs. If he's on the ballot with someone the party members prefer, he's going to lose. But the way things are looking, there's talk of it being Jenrick and Badenoch on the final ballot because they're leading the votes by some margin. No. That will all likely change after the next round. So mathematically, to guarantee a place on the very final ballot, so at the final round that MPs vote on, there'll be three left. Which are the two that are going to get through? A candidate needs 41 votes from MPs to guarantee being on that final ballot. Nobody has got up to this marker yet. So nobody can be sure of making it to the final round. The MPs who were supporting Mel Stride are going to be crucial in the next round. In order to guarantee getting through the next round, a candidate would need 31 votes. Now, only Robert Jenrick has this so far. Badenoch is close enough that you'd imagine she will get through. So the next round is really probably between Tugendhat and Cleverly for the so-called moderate vote. And because they were tied on 21 votes yesterday, you would think there can be some movement. There was a little bit of movement in the votes yesterday compared to the first round, but you would think this is going to be largely down to Mel Stride supporters. Who are they going to back? But what I would say is this. If you regard Cleverly, Tugendhat and Stride as relatively moderate, centre-right, One Nation Tories, then collectively they got 58 votes yesterday. That is enough to power through whichever one of those three, or now two, is left into the final ballot, with plenty to spare. Now, we can't assume that all of Stride's supporters will back either Cleverly or Tugendhat, and that whichever left after the next round will inherit all of those votes as well. Some will, for whatever reason, back Jenrick or Badenoch. In fact, as we get towards the final stage of voting, there will probably be some strategic support being given to the candidate MPs think is most likely to win. After all, if an MP publicly backs a candidate and that candidate wins, there's a decent chance they'll reward them with a shadow ministerial position. And if that MP has a following of their own, their public backing will be worth a shadow cabinet position. Indeed, you'd expect quite a bit of negotiating to be going on after the next round. But on the balance of probability, with the numbers from the first two rounds, you would say the final ballot is very likely to have either Cleverly or Tugendhat on it for the one place, for the sort of moderate place, and Jenrick or Badenoch for the sort of far-right place. And for my money, if Tory MPs show a bit more strategic thinking than they've done so far, I think I would say the final ballot is probably shaping up to look like Jenrick against Cleverly. I still think Badenoch will be seen as too much of a risk, too divisive, too ineffective at the dispatch box. And if you're a relatively moderate Tory MP, you need to not so much back the candidate you think will be the best leader, but the one most likely to beat Jenrick or Badenoch in a popularity contest with members. And the thing is, although Badenoch is probably the least suitable, she's probably the one that party members would think, yeah, because everyone's raving about her in the Tory media. So you would probably think James Cleverly is more likely to beat either of those based on the limited polling we have. But of course, the next round of voting will not take place until after the Conservative Party conference. That is being described as a beauty contest to parade the final four. It's a little bit of a grim description, but never mind. I mean, let's face it, there's nothing else to do at the conference, is there? They can't talk about, oh, we're introducing this policy or this policy. They don't have firm policies until they have a new leader. It would be a bit mad to try and do a victory lap over their achievements in government because they were just given a massive thumbs down from the public for them. So the only order of business is getting the 4 leadership contenders to set out their stalls, explain why they would make the best leader, present their vision. Being realistic, none of them are facing up to the problems the party has, but more on that in the video this evening. But the conference could well change minds, as it might become clearer who the party members are most likely to support, because polling's one thing, there's always a healthy dose of error, particularly when you're trying to poll party members. Whereas we'll see some of the most committed party members actively looking at these contenders at the conference, and you'll be able to get more of a, or people who are there will get more of a feel for who's winning the beauty contest. So then in the final 2 rounds for MPs, Tories will have to back the one in their tribe who has the most appeal. No point in trying to back the one you think will just do best as leader. It's got to be the one who'll win. And perhaps even try to strategically back the one in opposition tribe who has the least appeal. Because if you do imagine there's about 58 votes or even 50 votes for the moderate One Nation candidate that gets into the final bit, you've got a few votes to spare that you can peel off and back either Jenrick or Badenoch, whichever one you think will appeal least to the party members. So there is still scope for strategic voting in the final round. Jenrick at the moment has the most support from MPs, but it is nowhere near enough to even guarantee being on the final ballot. But also, how much support does he have from the party members who want a far-right extremist? Because although he's been making all the right noises for the last year or two, he's basically presented himself as like a more grounded Suella Braverman. His stated politics now is very different from in 2022. It was only 2 years ago when he was seen as most definitely a centre-right Tory himself. Will party members believe that he's had this sudden change of heart, that he's really sincere? That is the big question mark over Jenrick, and perhaps reason enough to believe that he's the weakest opponent for the One Nation candidate to face. And with several polls suggesting that Cleverly has more chance than Tugendhat, and Tugendhat's not really making much of a case for why he would win public backing, I can see Tory MPs ultimately backing Cleverly and Jenrick for the final ballot. But like I say, a lot will come down to the party conference. You might get a stunning performance from one or an absolute cringe fest from another, and then things could change. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.